Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. Our Mox Pearl patron Tyler is back for another game. Our Patreon CEDH webcam league is over at the end of this month. Our league is played over webcam and is 100% proxy friendly. The winner of this league gets our very last Don't Feed the Fish playmat. Also, our first big in-person Patreon event is super close. We will be meeting up locally, recording games, and looking to have a great time. We have already started sharing all the details with patrons, so be sure to join us at the end of this month. Finally, we will be having another CEDH tournament on our Discord on August 21st. All patrons are eligible to participate in the tournament. All of these perks are available only through our Patreon, so check the description for the link and sign up today. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Tyler piloting Kenrith, the Return King. This is a mid-range deck that looks to create infinite mana and then sink it into Kenrith to win the game. His opening hand contains a City of Brass, Mana Vault, Yavimaya Coast, Underground River, Elves of Deep Shadow, Swan Song, and a Regrowth. Next, we have Zach piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. This is a stacks list that looks to play Hate Bears and then turn them into card advantage with both of its commanders. His opening hand contains a Hallowed Fountain, Lotus Petal, Drannith Magistrate, Siren Storm Tamer, Vampiric Tutor, Limdol's Vault, and Everin Wingmare. After that, we have Mike piloting the partner pair of Thrasios Triton Hero and Vial Smasher the Fierce. This is a mid-range deck that looks to grind value and then win using Ad Nauseam or Underworld Breach. His opening hand contains a Bloodstained Mire, Underground Sea, Snap, Grim Monolith, Limdol's Vault, Dramatic Reversal, and a Demonic Tutor. Finally, we have Adam piloting Kenrith, the Return King. This deck's entire goal is to stack out its opponents with some very unique card choices and then close out the game on the back of Kenrith. His opening hand contains an Ethersworn Canonist, Demonic Tutor, Carpet of Flowers, Windswept Heath, Polluted Delta, and his London Mulligans are a Thassa's Oracle and a Scalding Tarn. Without further ado, let's begin this sassy, sanctimonious, sly, sneaky, stunning soiree. Tyler lost the most money when Hull Breacher was banned, so he gets to start us off. Tyler draws a card for turn and plays the City of Brass. He taps it to cast an Elves of Deep Shadow. He passes. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Hallowed Fountain into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Lotus Petal. He cracks it to cast Drannith Magistrate. The table reevaluates their plan, and Zach ends the turn. Mike draws a card for turn and plays a Bloodstained Mire. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Bayou onto the battlefield. He casts a Birds of Paradise. He passes to Adam. Adam draws a card for turn and plays a Windswept Heath. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tropical Island onto the battlefield. He casts a Carpet of Flowers and passes the turn. Tyler draws and taps City of Brass to cast Brainstorm. He draws 3 and puts 2 back on top. He plays a Yavimaya Coast. He taps Elves of Deep Shadow to cast Mana Vault. He shifts the turn to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Swamp. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Drannith. Mike takes it and Zach passes. Mike draws and plays an Underground Sea. He casts a Grim Monolith. He casts a Llanowar Elves. Mike ends his turn. Adam draws and in his first main phase he adds 1 white mana through his Carpet of Flowers. He plays a Polluted Delta. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He casts an Ethersworn Canonist and then passes the turn. Tyler draws and plays a Volcanic Island. He taps Elves of Deep Shadow and Yavimaya Coast to cast Regrowth, targeting Brainstorm. He returns Brainstorm from his graveyard to his hand and then passes the turn. At the end of Tyler's turn, Zach casts Limdol's Vault. He looks at the top 5, doesn't like what he sees, and then decides to do it again. He repeats this process a total of 5 times, paying 4 life. He shuffles, rearranges the top 5, and then the turn moves to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Sea of Clouds. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Drannith. Mike takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Zach casts Serra Ascendant. He ends the turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Tyler casts Brainstorm. He draws 3 and puts 2 back on top. Mike draws and casts a Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand and then ends the turn. At the end of Mike's turn, Tyler taps City of Brass to cast an Enlightened Tutor. He fetches up a Smothering Tithe onto the top of his library. Adam draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 1 black through his carpet. He casts a Demonic Tutor of his own. He fetches up a card into his hand. He plays a Command Tower and then moves to combat. He attacks Mike with his Canonist. Mike takes it, and then Adam shifts the turn to Tyler. Tyler draws and plays a Tundra. He casts Smothering Tithe. It resolves, Tyler rejoices, and passes. Zach draws, Smothering Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Zach casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Serra Ascendant and Adam with Drannith. They both take it, Zach gains 6 life, and in his second main phase, Tymna triggers. Zach pays 2 life and draws 2 cards through Tymna. Tithe triggers and Tyler creates 2 more treasures. Zach plays a Polluted Delta and passes. At the end of Zach's turn, Mike casts Limdul's Vault. He looks at the top 5, doesn't like what he sees, and does it again. He repeats this process a total of 3 times, paying 2 life. He shuffles, rearranges the top 5, and then moves to his turn. Mike draws, holds open mana, and passes. Adam draws and pays for Smothering Tithe. In his main phase, he adds 2 white mana through his carpet. He plays a Bayou. He casts Grand Abolisher. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Canonist. Mike takes it, and Adam passes to Tyler. During his draw step, Tyler takes a damage from his mana vault. He plays a Reflecting Pool. He casts a Gilded Drake. It enters and exchanges control with Drannith Magistrate. Tyler ends his turn. At the end of Tyler's turn, Zach cracks his Polluted Delta, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts a Vampiric Tutor. He fetches up a card onto the top of its library and loses 2 life. Zach draws and moves directly to combat. He attacks Mike with Tymna, Adam with the Drake, and Tyler with Serra Ascendant. They all take it, and Zach gains 8 life. In his second main phase, Zach pays 3 life and draws 3 cards through Tymna. Tithe triggers 3 times, and Tyler creates 3 treasures. Zach casts a Linvala, Keeper of Silence. In response, Mike and Tyler float mana with their dorks. Linvala resolves, and Zach moves phases. Before mana fades, Mike casts an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. In response, Tyler casts Swan Song. Rift is countered, and Mike creates a 2/2 bird. Zach passes to Mike. Mike draws and casts a Carpet of Flowers. He passes. Adam draws and pays for Smothering Tithe. He moves to combat and attacks Tyler with Canonist. Tyler takes it, and Adam ends his turn. During his draw step, Tyler takes a damage from his mana vault. He plays a Flooded Strand. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts his commander, Kenrith the Return King, and then ships the turn. Zach draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Zach moves to combat and attacks Tyler with Serra Ascendant, Adam with Linvala, and Mike with the Drake. They all take it, and Zach gains 6 life. In his second main phase, Zach pays 3 life and draws 3 cards through Tymna. Tithe triggers 3 times, and Tyler creates 3 treasures. Zach casts a Siren Storm Tamer. He passes, discarding to hand size. Mike draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Mike takes no game actions and ends his turn. Adam draws and pays for Smothering Tithe. In his main phase, he makes 3 green mana through his carpet. He casts an Avacyn's Pilgrim and then ships the turn to Tyler. During his upkeep, Tyler pays to untap his mana vault. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with Kenrith. Zach takes it, and Tyler ends the turn. At the end of Tyler's turn, Zach casts a Mystical Tutor. He fetches up a Swords to Plowshares onto the top of his library. Zach draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Zach moves to combat and attacks Tyler with Serra Ascendant, Adam with Storm Tamer, and Mike with Linvala and Gilded Drake. They all take it, and Zach gains 6 life. In his second main phase, Zach pays 3 life and draws 3 cards through Tymna. Tithe triggers 3 times, and Tyler creates 3 treasures. Zach casts Chrome Mox, imprinting an Aura of Silence. He casts a Baleful Strix. It enters, and Zach draws a card. Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Zach plays a Mana Confluence and passes. Mike draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Mike, trying to fight through the stacks, holds up mana and passes to Adam. Adam draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. In his main phase, he adds 3 white through his carpet. Adam casts an Elesh Norn, Grand Cenobite. She resolves, wipes out all the small creatures, and shrinks everything else. Adam moves to combat and attacks Zach with Canonist, Abolisher, and Pilgrim. Zach takes it, and Adam ends his turn. Tyler draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with Kenrith. Zach takes it, drops below 30 life, causing Serra Ascended to shrink, and then Serra dies to Elesh Norn. Tyler passes. At the end of Tyler's turn, Zach casts Swords to Plowshares, targeting Canonist. In response, Adam pays 2 life to cast Mental Misstep, targeting Swords. Misstep counters Swords, and then the turn moves to Zach. Zach draws and casts Mystic Remora. He passes the turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Mike casts Snap, targeting Canonist. Remora triggers, and Zach draws. Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Tyler then responds by casting Delay, targeting Snap, paying for Remora. Snap is countered and exiled with 3 time counters on it, and then the turn passes to Mike. During his upkeep, Mike removes a time counter from Snap. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. In his main phase, Mike adds 3 black through his carpet. He casts a Mana Vault. Remora triggers, and Zach draws. Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Vault resolves, and Mike passes. Adam draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Adam moves to combat and attacks Mike with everything. Mike takes it, and dies, and then in his second main phase, Adam adds 3 white mana through his carpet. He casts an Academy Rector. He plays an Ancient Tomb, and then he ships the turn to Tyler. Tyler draws, holds open a ridiculous amount of mana, and passes. During his upkeep, Zach pays to keep his Remora. He draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. Zach plays an Ancient Tomb. He moves to combat and attacks Adam with Gilded Drake. Adam takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach casts Diabolic Intent, sacrificing Gilded Drake. He fetches up a card into his hand and then ships the turn to Adam. At the end of Zach's turn, Adam casts Vampiric Tutor. Remora triggers and Zach draws. Tithe triggers and Tyler creates a treasure. Adam fetches up a card onto the top of his library and loses 2 life. Zach then passes, discarding the hand size. Adam draws, Tithe triggers, and Tyler creates a treasure. In his main phase, Adam adds 3 green through his carpet. He casts Finale of Devastation, where X equals 6. He fetches up an Oran Frostfang onto the battlefield. He moves to combat and attacks Tyler with everything. Tyler blocks Pilgrim with Kenrith. Tyler takes the rest, killing him, and Frostfang triggers 4 times. Adam draws 4 cards. In his second main phase, he plays a Homeward Path. He passes. During his upkeep, Zach pays for Remora. He draws and, in desperation, casts Tainted Pact. He exiles off of the top of his library until he reveals a Cyclonic Rift and puts it into his hand. He then passes, discarding to hand size. Adam draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with everything. Zach jump blocks with Linvala and takes the rest. Frostfang triggers 4 times and Adam draws 4 cards. In his second main phase, he adds 2 white through his carpet. He plays an Exotic Orchard. He taps Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Kenrith the Returned King. He passes to Zach. During his upkeep, Zach lets his Mystic Remora die. He draws and plays a Tundra. He taps Ancient Tomb to cast an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. It resolves and bounces all of Adam's non-land permanents to his hand. Zach ends his turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Adam flashes in an Aven Mind Sensor. Adam draws and casts Grand Abolisher. In response, Zach casts Force of Will, paying a life, exiling a blue card, and targeting Grand Abolisher. Force counters Abolisher, and then Adam plays a Plateau. He taps Ancient Tomb to cast Kenrith, the Returned King. He activates Kenrith, giving all creatures haste and trample. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kenrith and Mind Sensor. Zach takes it, and in his second main phase, Adam casts Carpet of Flowers. He passes, discarding to hand size. Zach draws and thinks about how he is going to get out of this situation. He sees no way out and concedes the game to Adam's lethal attack on the following turn. Ladies and gentlemen, that game was fantastic. Congrats to Adam on his win. He did a great job of completely seizing the initiative from Zach in just 1 turn. Zach went from a commanding board state to on the back foot in the blink of an eye. Mike and Tyler both really felt the stacks in this game, and as a result were severely limited in what they could do. The most valuable card for tonight's game feels like it should go to Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. However, the most valuable card in tonight's game goes to Ethersworn Canonist. Sometimes it's not always clear in our videos whenever a card is having an impact on the board through our narration alone. This card was valuable not through what it enabled, but instead what it stopped. This card was limiting so many plays from everyone. Players kept having to time their spells and interaction properly on other people's turns due to this card. It was this card that was able to buy Adam enough time to cast Elesh Norn and turn the tide in his favor in the late game. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. It is Patreon shoutout time. I'd like to give a shout out to Nitai Rubinovics. Ooh, that's a tough one. Ivan Thumatarian Descendant, Frapril, Nathan Smith, Elijah Miller, J-Rock, Pyro, Dark, Philip Hickey, Brad Tobin, Sanguino Lindsay, Snarps the Klept, Matt Wingrove, Delph Driz, Dante, Jared Smith, Baby Jeebus, Trey Payne, Rakeko, Greg Babe, Zods, Spielrahu, CZ, Nick, and Liam. Thank you all very much for your support.